The United States of America. It's one of our closest neighbors and the country with whom we share the most valued bilateral relationship. Here in the capital, Washington, D.C., policy decisions are made every day. And more, there's evidence of the thrust toward renewable energy. Hello everyone, I'm Kishla Adderley. And for the next hour, we'll take a look at the power of green, renewable energy in America. We'll take you from the foothills of Arizona's Rocky Mountain coast to the vast coastlines of Florida. It offers miles of sandy beaches, vibrant shopping districts, and is home to the NBA champion Miami Heat. In recent years, the state of Florida has seen record numbers of tourists seeking out a tan or a taste of the tropics. In 2012, an estimated 89.3 million people came to Florida, and that was up by 2.3% compared with 2011. That's according to Visit Florida, the state's tourism marketing agency. And the city scenes here show no signs of slowing down, with booming construction adding to the selection of new hotels, which will help major cities like Miami and Fort Lauderdale retain their prominence in the competitive tourism market. Recently, Florida hotels have been focusing on a new amenity. More and more, they're opening the door to cleaner, greener ways of doing business. Tama Vago is the Director of Operations at the 374-room Hilton Fort Lauderdale Beach Resort. Just a few floors up from this penthouse suite with its spectacular views, there's a hotel feature I was lucky enough to be able to see up close. These 6 wind turbines may not look very powerful, but they make a big statement. The turbines, erected between 2007 and 2014 at a cost of $700,000, are a first for the Hilton brand and are already paying off.
All of these turbines, it's generating, I would say, probably enough energy to lit up this building with all LED lights. It is actually around 10% saving from our electricity, overall electricity. So it might be a big number, $50,000, but it's almost 10% of our usage.
Downstairs in the disposal area, there's another display of cost savings directly linked to the hotel's commitment to renewable energy. Typically, 30% of a hotel's food ends up in the trash, but this $30,000 investment in a food composting machine has created a tidier way to get rid of it.
This hotel at least generating 2,000 cover per day, which means 2,000 plates going to the guests. And to be honest, normally around 30% of the food which goes on the plate, it comes back. After that, all of this food waste, other hotels, what they do, they just dump it outside in the big container in the garbage. And in South Florida, after the second day, it started to fermenting, so it's not really the right way. Plus, it's costing you a lot. Fish, clam, fish bones, chicken bones, crab and shrimp shells, vegetables, everything can go in.
This machine can process about 1,000 pounds of food. That's quite a mouthful. But as Vago explains, in a process similar to human digestion, this machine makes quick work of the waste.
This front part is where you put the food in, you feed it in, and you have basically just like a little engine, just like under your kitchen sink, and it rotates the food and it chops it up to smaller pieces. So just like in your mouth, your teeth is basically cutting up all of those items, and water is added to it, which is pretty much saliva when you have it in your mouth. So after that's happening, it cuts it up to smaller pieces and pushes it into the stomach, which is the whole machine behind it. And you got a biomix inside, which added to the food, and in 24 hours, it works it through, and the food became water and comes out in those pipes and goes to the city sewage, which is fantastic because 24 hours it goes away.
On to a more palatable topic, the Hilton's commitment to green also extends to its drinks menu. This American Harvest vodka is organic from start to finish. Right down to the ink on the bottle, it's recycled, and the plant where the vodka is produced uses wind and solar energy. And to ensure the integrity of the product, for professional reasons of course, I had to try it. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's brewed somewhere in the world.
For sure.
In Miami, the Hampton Inn downtown is proud of its 221-room property and the silver certification it's earned from the Leadership in Energy and Design Institute, LEED. Later in the program, we'll talk in detail about the organization, which rates the level of renewable energy use in buildings. The classic Hilton brand welcomes guests into a spacious lobby, elegant simplicity with some subtle energy-saving and recycling elements, like the tinted windows which reduce the amount of heat entering the building and subsequently air conditioning costs, and disposables made of potato starch. And that's just the lobby.
This is our double point room.
Inside the rooms, there are more features. Carpets made of recycled material, antibacterial phones, and this bathroom feature. This looks like a regular shower curtain, but it's not.
Correct, it's not.
Explain why.
Yes, when we opened the hotel almost 3 years ago, that model was available and we purchased it. It's made of 80 bottles of water that were recycled into that
Bottles
beautiful
of water
shower.
made this curtain.
Yes, plastic bottle of water made that curtain.
That's amazing. And there's more to the Hilton's renewable energy plan. They're also seeing less of their profits wash down the drain in the laundry room. Most consumers use a mix of commercial cleaning products which promise to kill the germs which cling to our linen. But as I learned, there's a perfectly natural way to get rid of them. Introducing ozone technology.
The ozone system sanitizes our laundry. And instead of using harmful chemicals like chlorine and the use of a softener to soften the fabric after the chlorine has already acted on the fabric, we have the ozone kicks in. It reduces the amount of hot water that is required. It reduces the amount of harmful chemicals that are used and then thrown away with the sewage. And also reduces the amount of drying time because the fabric gets fluffier with the use of ozone. So we save electricity from the machine operation, we save on water cycles, and we save on gas, both for the washing and for the drying. We're able to save 17% in water, 11% in electricity, and 49% in natural gas usage.
Downstairs in the parking garage, an increasing number of hotel patrons are filling up the Greenway. How do you charge up your car? Do you say you want $5 of electricity? How does it work? This electric vehicle recharging station gives hybrid drivers and a growing number of electric vehicles like this one, complete with solar paneling on the roof, all the power they need to take to the road.
You have up to 4 hours. Usually that's the average time of a car fill from zero to full. And all they need to do is plug it in, turn it on, and go to their room and wait until it's charged.
Be somewhere. They're supposed to be somewhere around here. Hello? Solar energy. It's as seamless as the sunshine but in an oil-dependent world, it's as good as gold. The sun often bears the brunt of complaints. Here in Arizona, the hottest summers get up into the 120s, as you can see by the dry, cracked earth. But as far as renewable energy is concerned, the more sun, the better.
You have left side and right side. We go up 1 to 4. We have this big one.
In Yuma, Arizona, there is no shortage of sunshine, 313 days each year to be exact. And the staff at Agua Caliente, an NRG solar plant, they're not complaining. A bird's eye view of the plant is impressive. The largest photovoltaic solar plant in the world, Agua Caliente sits on 2,400 acres of land between Yuma and Phoenix. Jeff Holland, Director of Communications for NRG, explains how the technology works.
So each panel that we have here obviously collects the rays from the sunlight and then turns that into electricity to power homes and businesses. Each panel is about 2 feet by 4 feet in dimension, and it's absorbing the sun's rays, and then that goes into some of these transformer boxes that you see out on site here, and that would go into a substation, and then the substation produces the electricity out onto the electrical grid. Each panel is about between 75 to 90 watts in power, and so when you couple all of them together or put all of them together, there's more than 5 million panels out here on site.
Full capacity, it produces about 290 megawatts of electricity every day. That's enough to power 225,000 homes. It's projected that the plant will, over the next 25 years, offset about 5.5 million metric tons of CO2, or carbon dioxide, the equivalent of taking over 40,000 cars off the road each year. Meantime, the company is also making its mark in the Caribbean.
We've actually got a project right now with MGM Mandalay Bay to do a rooftop solar installation at one of their facilities at their convention center. We've got a project that we just announced with Sir Richard Branson on Necker Island, which is in the Caribbean in the Virgin Islands, to do a microgrid application. And that's kind of a combination of wind and solar and battery backup storage. And so we can remove a lot of the diesel generation that was prevalent on that island.
Just north of Arizona, there are more examples of how the U.S. is turning natural energy into a valuable commodity. This is the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Denver, Colorado. Here, some of the largest companies in the world test the technology of the future.
The deployment of renewable technologies is not something that most people understand.
Wind energy at work can be as basic as a boat sailing along the water. But since the 19th century, science has found a way to convert kinetic energy from the wind into electrical power. The first wind turbine for electricity production was built by Professor James Blythe of Anderson's College, Glasgow. Simply explained, a wind turbine works the opposite of a fan. The wind turns the blades, which spin a shaft which connect to a generator and make electricity. This is the specialty of Ian Baring Gold. He's the Technology Deployment Manager of Wind and Water Technologies for the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL. He and his team spend their days studying how best to place wind and solar energy in the U.S. and in the Caribbean.
The U.S. Virgin Islands, which is down in your neck of the woods, their power is produced primarily by diesel engines, almost completely, and so they're looking at diversifying their energy portfolio, and they want to look at renewables, but they're not sure what kind of renewables to use. So as part of that program with the U.S. Virgin Islands, we've done assessments, resource assessments, looking at what is the solar and the wind potential, where it is on their islands. We've done grid analyses to determine where and how much renewable energy you could put in and make the diesel engines work appropriately, so revise the power system. We've done detailed studies on a number of locations on the U.S. Virgin Islands where you could deploy wind and solar technologies. We've done some policy work to help support the policy framework around the use of renewable energy. And then we've also supported the WAPA, their Water and Power Administration, on writing RFPs for WAPA to purchase renewable technologies, both wind and solar technologies.
Though the U.S. government may have put a set of benchmarks in place to govern its territories for decades to come, the hope is that renewable energy extends far beyond its borders. Julia Neshawat is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Energy Resources Bureau at the Department of State. She says Washington is chipping away at the harmful emissions from traditional energy sources from three angles.
Our objective goes into three main pillars or objectives, and one focuses on diplomacy. Secondly, energy transformation, as we look at the energy of tomorrow, which could also be argued as the energy of today with alternative and renewable energy. And then we also have an access and governance portfolio where we focus on helping countries build the right regulatory framework, for example, and good governance practices where there are natural resources in particular countries and being able to develop that. We also have a public diplomacy shop and an analysis shop too. So between the three pillars, we work together to be able to manage those diplomacy efforts when it comes to energy security. And it's such an interconnected world when it comes to these issues.
For its part, the U.S. has set these benchmarks for the future of renewable energy decades into the future.
We've already moved forward on trying to double our targets for renewable energy by 2020, and we hope to go up to 80% of clean energy sources by 2035. And renewable energy is in addition to natural gas and other sources, will be a huge part of that mixture, if you will. So it's something that we take very seriously, and we hope to lead by example, if you will.
This looks like your average SUV, but there's one very big difference. Coming up, how car companies are helping drive green technology.
One thing you notice with an electric car is that you get a lot of low-end torque, so we'll tend to can accelerate more quickly than you're used to.
And later, a wild experience provides a big lesson in becoming one with nature. That's great. Cutting vehicle emissions is the biggest challenge anywhere in the world when it comes to reducing the carbon footprint. According to the Union of Concerned Scientists, 61% of emissions in the United States come from light-duty vehicles, with aircraft emissions contributing a distant 10%. The United States Department of Energy is working to change that. The department's goal is to reduce the gas equivalent per gallon to $2.50 by 2020. Back at NREL, those wind turbines are a major component of that plan.
As far as energy content, a gallon of gasoline is equal to a kilogram of hydrogen. The difference is these fuel cell cars are very efficient, so a kilogram of hydrogen will get you 60 to 70 miles, whereas a normal internal combustion engine car, you might only get 20 to 30 miles per gallon.
The hydrogen car is on the market in limited quantities now. Getting a fill-up may look like the same drill, but this fill-up is quite different. Here's how gas measures up to hydrogen in terms of mileage.
So what it does is it takes hydrogen, like you saw being produced at the wind site, and it converts it from hydrogen directly into electricity and then runs a car as an electrified vehicle. So it's basically, it's like a battery electric vehicle. It has the same motors, the same power electronics in every way, but instead of a battery which stores electricity from the grid, we can take renewable energy from wind or from solar, convert it into hydrogen, then we store that as a fuel on board and then use that to produce the electricity.
Let's take a look under the hood. The engine looks similar to that of a traditional vehicle, but here's how hydrogen cars and their counterparts, electric vehicles, differ from gasoline-powered vehicles.
Well, with both of them you get zero tailpipe emissions, so that's a huge advantage. And depending upon where the electricity or the hydrogen comes from, they can also be zero carbon emissions. The big difference is how much energy you can store on board. A battery, has relatively low energy density, so you might be able to store enough energy to go 80 or 100 miles in a small, very efficient battery electric vehicle. In a hydrogen vehicle, they're also very efficient, but you can now store more energy, and you can get upwards from 150 to 300 miles of range on a single tank of hydrogen.
But that's not the extent of hydrogen technology. It's already proven to benefit an emergency situation like a power outage.
A few years ago, when Hurricane Sandy came across the East Coast and wiped out power, there were many hydrogen backup power units that brought electricity up for hospitals and things like that. And they proved to be more reliable than gasoline backup generators, so that's an application. They're finding a lot of applications in forklifts and material handling equipment where you have a need to have the forklifts indoors, so you would prefer not to be running them exhausting fumes, so you either run them on batteries or you can run them on hydrogen. And this is an area where they're actually market driven, that they're finding that for very big warehouses that are running shifts around the clock, this is actually more economical to use hydrogen fuel cell powered forklifts than to use battery powered forklifts.
NREL is also moving full steam ahead with emerging technologies. Zhenping Yu is senior scientist at the Bioscience Center at NREL. He spends his days tucked away in the laboratory, analyzing specimens and concepts that may be hard for the average person to pronounce or absorb. Using forest products or leftover agricultural materials, he is converting them into fuels, thereby providing the alternative to the world's major pollutants. He's experimenting with these cultures, testing the possibilities for the production of ethylene gas.
And ethylene can be converted into liquid transportation fuels. Ethylene is the most produced industrial chemicals worldwide. I should say ethylene is the most produced organic compound worldwide. It is currently produced from fossil fuels such as petroleum and natural gas. And the production of ethylene is a major carbon dioxide releasing process.
And that big goal starts with this experiment.
Our main interest is transportation fuels. So we hope to be able to convert ethylene into transportation fuels. And that will displace the use of petroleum and natural gas.
This will be a liquid fuel or?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, ethylene when it's produced, it's a gas. But the gas needs to be harvested and converted into liquid fuels. So there will be an industrial process following the production of ethylene. Yeah. I'm a biologist and I focus on engineering of the organism from not being able to produce any ethylene to produce a lot of ethylene.
They were at $350 bills in the summer, or they were at $180 bills in the winter. So look what we've done, 20.
Is that relief you can use? Hear how it's possible coming up. This is FedEx Field, home of the Washington Redskins. Coming up, we'll tell you why on this field, renewable energy is a big catch. Home ownership. It's the dream of most people. A place to call your own, designed just the way you like it, with all the amenities to suit your pocketbook. Here in Arizona, the housing community is strictly for those 55 and over. But make no mistake, in this community, they're keeping up with renewable energy technology. And this self-proclaimed solar coach, retired engineer Drew Bacon, has committed his time to educating his neighbors.
Most of the people that are purchasing solar are not familiar with how it works and what it should cost and that kind of thing. So they're at the mercy of solar salesmen to tell them what they need and so forth. So what I do is help to make them better informed solar consumers.
And he's had good success. He's convinced owners of 890 of 4,000 homes in the community to make the switch to solar. On the day we paid a visit, this home was being outfitted with photovoltaic or PV solar panels. And with all the sun in Arizona, clients benefit from big energy savings through a system called net metering.
If your house needs 400 kilowatts of energy and your solar system produces 600, your 400 is used, your other 200 goes forward back into the grid for use when you need it again. Same thing with February, same thing with March. So in Arizona, people usually have about 1,500 credits built up before the summer comes. Now, we get very hot summers here. So in that very hot summer, you're going to underproduce because the people are running their air conditioners. But those credits come back and offset that bill. What happens here, and I don't know exactly your weather patterns in the Bahamas, but what happens here is in the winter months, if the system was done right, the people are only paying basic charges to the power company, meaning metering and cost of distribution to your thing. So it's $20, $22 a month. In the summer, it can get up to $60 or $80. And keep in mind, before I got here, they were at $350 bills in the summer, or they were at $180 bills in the winter. So look what we've done, 20. For people of retirement age, they can't afford the 4.8% increase that the power company has every year. Because in our Social Security, we get a 1.4% increase. Most people that do solar are people that want to secure their retirement. Okay? So if you do solar, you're done. You don't worry about increases anymore because the power that's produced can never be increased. Well, that's really it.
Bacon is determined to secure that benefit for more and more of his neighbors, but he's not stopping there.
Solar has been doubling in the United States. Solar has been doubling every 2 years. And so now solar is about 1% of the total electric generation capacity in the U.S. But if that doubles 7 more times, that would be 100%. Now, I'm not suggesting that in 14 years or 7 doublings that we'll have all solar, but that's an indication of how rapidly solar is growing. So I think we're at the beginning of a revolution.
In Mount Pleasant, Washington, D.C., it may not be as easy for members of this middle-class community to make the investment in solar. Anya Schoolman admits when her 12-year-old son introduced the idea, she was turned off by the expense and confusion over solar installation.
See metal roof, like those roofs there? You can just roll these rolls right out between the seams.
But she did her research and decided it made sense to include her neighbors.
We started a group in Mount Pleasant called the Mount Pleasant Solar Cooperative. And we went from house to house with flyers and we said, you know, if you could go solar and save money, would you? If you could go solar, the same price as now, would you?
2 weeks after posting those flyers, 50 people had signed up. Now the question was, how would they pay for it?
We still save about 20 or 30% by going together as a group. But the difference is that a solar system for a house back then might have been $25,000 before incentives, and the exact same solar system today might be $9,000 before any incentives. And here in the U.S. there's some important incentives. One thing is the federal government gives a tax credit. So if a homeowner goes solar, they can take 30% off the total price and then get it back as a credit in their taxes. So that really helps pay for it. And then many cities, many states also have incentives, either grants or tax credits or other ways. So for example, in DC, you can get 30% off from the federal government and 30% off from the city. so you only have to pay a third.
Soon people from all over the country were calling, requesting information on installation and how to start similar programs in their own communities. But they're not alone in the game.
Washington scored 24 unanswered points. Tough game here, and here is RG3. He's going to run for the first down, and still on his feet. RG3 is going to outrace everybody.
RG3, Deshaun Jackson, and Brian Akrapow. NFL fans would know those names, especially if they're Washington Redskins diehards. The three-time Super Bowl winners are going for a fourth with high expectations of their newest acquisition in quarterback Robert Griffin III. So what's the connection between the NFL and solar?
Yeah, the NFL really represents the largest singular marketing platform and communications platform in the United States with over 176 million fans. And so what better venue to talk about a clean energy future than one of the largest and most influential platforms in the United States.
FedEx Field is the first to collaborate with NRG to incorporate solar into their energy plans. This is Solar Man, 30 feet of solar muscle. Fans can't miss him as they enter the stadium. But what they may not know is that he scores big for the stadium's energy bill.
We have over 7,600 solar panels in the parking lot covering 841 parking spaces, as well as over 500 solar panels at the ramp leading up to the seats of the stadium, with many of them semi-transparent, so not to block the view of the nation's capital for fans as they come into the stadium. And then, of course, our iconic Solar Man.
But NRG is still making the rounds, hoping to see touchdowns and home runs with solar energy all over the country.
Yeah, we have a total of 5 stadiums here in DC, and then in Philadelphia, Lincoln Financial Field, in New York, New Jersey at MetLife Stadium, in New England and Foxborough, Massachusetts at Patriot Place, and then soon to be open the Levi Stadium in Santa Clara around the 49ers.
Platinum, and so that's why when we went to the RSF, we decided we'd push the goal a little bit further and see if we could get net zero energy in addition to LEED Platinum, because we could.
It was a cold day in Denver when we visited the NREL headquarters. But the team here makes a living by creating living spaces that keep the heat out and let it in when necessary, all while keeping the costs low.
Some of the most unique sustainable features of the building are the long, skinny floor plates. So they have 60-foot floor depth, and that was optimized to bring in natural ventilation and daylight, full daylighting throughout the course of a day. We have, for the daylighting components, we have vision glass and daylight glass split. And so that's the vision glass is so you can see out, but that doesn't necessarily bring a lot of daylight into the space. And the daylight glass has optically designed louvers that redirect sunlight coming in from the outside onto the ceiling and create a luminous ceiling in the space so the electric lights can be off almost all of the time.
These are the green building advances that LEED looks for, and they practice what they preach. This wall displays the building construction and design elements, the vast majority of which are made of recycled material, from wall tiles to wooden flooring to bathroom fixtures and upholstery fabric. Considering all of these details and the building construction, LEED has developed a 4-tier rating system.
It's a big job and it's a big discussion, especially depending upon the industry that you're talking with. So there are certain industries that have definitely arrived in terms of green building where it's become a little more of its normal practice. So commercial office buildings like the one that we're in now are kind of the main market, if you will, for LEED. But LEED is also happening within manufacturing plants, within hospitals, within schools, within hotels. So you're seeing it all throughout. And in terms of kind of having the conversation with the company or an owner about why they would do LEED, it really depends upon the market sector. So you're having a different type of conversation. So with hotels, they're very interested in, kind of what would the guest experience be. In a big stadium, they're thinking about fan engagement. So, how are people going to interact and how will they see that team? In an office building, you're talking about things like productivity and overall employee performance.
The NREL building has earned platinum status. This sizable complex with the right conditions can run totally on solar. A closer look at these window treatments provide much more than a view of the Colorado mountains. They work in two ways to keep electricity costs down.
This is our envelope, what we call the envelope system, and we put most of our money into this system. So we, instead of spending a lot of money on traditional heating and cooling systems, we put it into making sure we could daylight and heat and cool from this element. And so what we have here is a split window. So we have our vision glass, and this is for a view of outside. You'll see we have no traditional blinds or shades on the window, and that's so that we can get as much daylight as possible. We just have this hood, which blocks too much direct sun from coming down onto the floor. And then we have the daylight glass above, and that's a 3-foot tall, really high light transmittance glazing. And in front of that, you can see these louvers, sort of hinges out for cleaning. And these are static, but they're optically designed for our latitude, which is 40 degrees, to redirect incoming light onto the ceiling. So you can see in here right now, it feels fairly light. The surfaces are light, and so that's meant to bounce around the daylight so you can keep the electric lights off most of the day.
Tennessee State. It's an easy draw for warm weather-seeking tourists. It also provides beautiful mountain views. Life in Chattanooga is a lot slower than it is in the big city. You'll also find some of the hottest summers. But as we found out at Green Spaces, another green building facility, air conditioning can come straight from the earth.
At Green Spaces, we have geothermal, which uses these pipes. They go deep into the ground, and they're able to use the Earth's natural environment to supplement our heating and cooling. So it's always 55 degrees below the Earth's surface. During the summertime, when it's 80, 90, 100 degrees here in Chattanooga, we can simply take that air, that 55-degree air, bring it up through the pipes, and use that as our cooling. During the winter time, when it's 30, 20 degrees outside, again, we can bring up the 55-degree air and supplement that, so we only have to raise the temperature from 55 to 70 versus bringing in outside air, which is 30 degrees, and raising it to 70. So it helps us to save on our utility costs.
Ever heard of pervious pavement? Me neither. But people who live in flood-prone areas should get to know its benefits.
Essentially, when it rains, the pavement, instead of normal asphalt or concrete, which the rainfall would just spread and go into the stormwater system, this pavement allows the rainwater to flow back into the ground, which reduces the amount of stormwater that goes into our sewer system.
Still to come.
My first dare! Is it gonna come over?
And an uncommon hotel.
You know, you're not getting a flat screen TV in every single room.
house is arguably easier than making it a home, but here at this hostel they seem to have found the right formula. It was the most modest of lodgings that I've ever stayed in, and I truly learned the meaning of the bare minimum.
A bowl of salt. Potatoes and a bowl of salt.
I think they're already cooked.
Welcome to the Crash Pad. It's a hostel run by a group of 20-somethings who love the outdoors and the environment.
The Crash Pad started off as a climber campground and base camp. My business partner Dan Rose and I moved here back in 2005 for the climbing, and soon started to see a conspicuous lack of this base camp for the wealth of amazing climbing around here. So the idea soon evolved from just a climber campground to really a base camp for all outdoor enthusiasts coming through town. Chattanooga has an amazing wealth of natural resources and for any real outdoor pursuit. So we wanted to be that hangout spot, and at the same time we had stayed in some hostels in the past. We knew there were some redeeming qualities in the affordability and the communal nature, and kind of put those ideas together and ended up with the Crash Pad.
And they attract just that. As you could probably tell, the Crash Pad is no Ritz-Carlton.
$28 a night to stay in one of these beds. You get your own little ecosystem inside, so reading lamp and fan and 2 spare outlets built into every bunk, so you can charge your stuff while you're in your bunk.
It may lack in luxury, but the Crash Pad has earned platinum certification from LEED. And here's why.
The wood that you see in these beds and in our kitchen, all the shelving, that's wood from the old duplex as well. In our private room beds, both upstairs and down. We wanted to really contribute to a kind of a bare bones look here. Because a hostel should be no frills. You're not getting a flat screen TV in every single room. So we wanted to kind of contribute to that look and feel by having a very stripped down hostel. So that's why you see these just poured concrete floors with nothing on them. They're easier to clean. And then also all of this exposed conduit and all this exposed HVAC ducting that you see up here. So we have 2 units up on the roof, but again, we don't need to use them as much as we do as a conventional building would, just because of our high efficiency wall systems and all of these poured concrete floors. They really make a nice tight little envelope here.
Harry and Jennifer Smith would love the Crash Pad. They run a bed and breakfast in Key West, Florida, right on the beach. The weather in the Sunshine State was perfect on the day we visited, so I decided to take a short kayaking trip before talking with the husband and wife couple. And their passion for keeping their little piece of paradise pristine was clear.
We bring customers here. We let them know that all our furniture is made from recycled plastic that comes from 100% recycled bottles from a company in Pennsylvania. The beach, we live natural. We do planting of mangroves again to restore the beaches, and every place we planted mangroves and sea oats, the beach is actually then restoring and coming back. Also, all the paints that we use here, all the pesticides, everything we use here is organic or eco-friendly. We don't use anything that's chemical or any byproduct of chemicals, for any treatments here. Paints are all water-based.
And it didn't stop there. Every day they try to find ways to stretch the limits of green living.
We save all our rainwater. We also have a 2,500-gallon cistern, and the pool can be used for drinking water too in case of an emergency. So altogether we have about 30,000 gallons of water.
The point of that is, being self-sustainable here. If there's a devastating event, we'll just say, we'd be okay for a little while, hopefully. It's not been a huge cost and expense. I think that our composting toilet system was a pretty big investment here. Everything else is more about time and education and making the effort. This is things that anybody can do, including the toilet system.
This composting toilet uses just 1 pint of water per flush. An accompanying composting system breaks down the waste, and this is what comes out on the other end.
This is the compost that comes out of the composters. This has been dried, and we actually reuse it in the composters to accelerate compost, and also it's basically like peat moss, and you can even smell it. It doesn't. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It smells just like dirt.
That was a small adventure compared to the one that lay ahead. We were right in the middle of an interview when we were pleasantly interrupted.
Key deer, they will eat what they're supposed to eat, and if you plant foreign things like geraniums or something that just don't belong in the Florida Keys.
Yeah, go ahead. He's going to get a shot here. Speaking of the deer, here's one right here. Just taking a little drink from the foot wash.
That is, I would suspect, a yearling. It's about a year old.
She lost her mother when she was small.
They're pretty small. You know, the key deer, I don't know if you're aware, they are an endangered species. The key deer, they're an endangered species. Nobody's really sure how many there are.
And more of them began to emerge, obviously quite happily cohabitating with their human counterparts, including the newest addition to the family. This little one is estimated to be between 2 and 4 weeks old. I also made a new friend, and as I learned, she's a great conversationalist.
Hi, Angel. Hi. How are you? That's great. You look pretty there in your cage.
It was apparent that she loves company, but just 100 miles from home, our renewable energy journey was over, and I was headed back to Nassau. There's lots more ground to cover, though. Homes and businesses which utilize renewable energy are still few and far between here in the Bahamas. But hopefully, in the years to come, the sun, sand, and sea of the Bahamas will be lots more than a tourist draw, but the source of a cleaner, greener environment in a country where there are 315 days of sun every year. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Kishla Adderley.